Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Warfare Tournament. This is part 4 of our greatest tag teams. Hopefully, you've joined us on the other Wednesdays for the other 3 editions. Tonight, we'll find out who is joining the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, and the Dudley Boyz as the final 4 in our tournament to be decided later on tonight. During the Scumbags of Wrestling Podcast, which you can catch live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch at 10 o'clock right after AEW Dynamite. I'm going on vacation, so we're getting this all done in one night. Joining us, as always, is from Toronto, Steven. How are you?
Good. How are you doing? This is going to be a long day.
Yeah, between determining this bracket and then going into Scumbags Wrestling and I'm watching AEW as well. That's going to be enough. Plus, we've caught up on WWE pay-per-views such as Payback and a lot of news to go on. So we'll see what happens later tonight, but we will decide the final 4 and the 4th person right now, or 4th team right now. We're also joined by Jonesy from Niagara Falls. How are you?
I'm just great.
Awesome. Everything's there?
Yeah, everything's... It's a nice day. A chance of rain, though, I believe.
Yeah, it's been
It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell on a Wednesday exactly what the weather is going to be like.
Exactly. So we're going to play the last video of the tournament bracket, and Steven, you can run down who is participating tonight. And that is our list for today. Steven, do you want to run down what we're talking about?
Yeah, so match 1 is going to be the Midnight Rockers, or the Rockers, versus the North. Match 2 is Public Enemy versus the Bar, which is Cesaro and Sheamus. Match 3, Harlem Heat versus the Natural Disasters. Match 4, Demolition versus Edge and Christian. Match 5 is War Machine or Viking Raiders versus the Dark Family. Match 6 is the Funks, which is Terry and
Dory.
There's like 1,800 of them versus the Dream Team. Match 7 is the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, which is Gene and Ole Anderson versus the Colossal Connections. And match 8 is the world's greatest tag team, which is Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin versus Road Warrior Buck and Balding Buck, the Young Bucks.
Excellent. So that is our list for tonight. We'll find out who is joining the other 3 teams.
Only if you listen to Jim Cornette, you'll get the Young Buck reference.
For sure. That gets me started on the first round, which has the Midnight Rockers, or as most people would know them as the Rockers, taking on the North. The Rockers consisted of Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty. They worked in the AWA, NWA Central States, Continental Wrestling Federation, Continental Wrestling Association, and of course, most people recognize them from the WWF. They were together from May of 1985 until January 92, when that infamous day on the barbershop where Shawn Michaels super kicked Marty Jannetty, and Marty dove through the window to escape, if you believe Bobby the Brain Heenan. So they were ranked number 33 in the top 100 tag teams of all time in the PWI 2003 rankings that they did. And for titles, they won the AWA tag team titles twice, the Central States title once with the NWA, Continental Wrestling Association twice, and of course, we've talked about it a couple times in the other episodes when we talked about the Hart Foundation, was they won the WWF tag team titles on a recording of Saturday Night's Main Event. There was some dispute over what happened because the top rope ended up breaking. Jim Neidhart was possibly on his way out, but then things got settled. And instead of editing the video to show on Saturday Night's Main Event and the Hart Foundation staying together, Vince and company decided, let's not acknowledge Shawn and Marty as the tag team champions, even though they also did defend them against Power and Glory on a house show after that title exchange did happen. But because it didn't happen on TV, it didn't happen, is the mentality there. So they, unfortunately, were never WWF tag team champions. And even after they came in, they were touted as being tag team experts, the specialists for tag teams. Obviously, Shawn's career went a lot higher than Marty's, and unfortunately, also people say that if you're the weaker side of a tag team when it breaks up, you're essentially the Marty Jannetty of a whatever tag team you're part of. Marty, unfortunately, also has not had the greatest career post-Rockers, teaming with Leif Cassidy, Al Snow, but multiple firings from WWE after being brought back, almost reteaming with Shawn. He was supposed to be part of the reformation of the Rockers going against Vince and Shane, but he got fired after his second appearance, and they reverted to DX. So unfortunately, all these attempts of having the Rockers do whatever didn't happen. And in years also, Shawn was one who baptized Marty when he found religion too. Flipping over to the north, some good old Canadian boys, Ethan Page and Josh Alexander. They have been on the independent wrestling scene since 2011. Their initial teaming together started in 2011 and went through to 2015, and then has been resurrected in 2019 to current, where they were the longest reigning Impact Wrestling Tag Team Champions up until recently when the Motor City Machine Guns took it from them. So as I said, they formed in 2011 as Monster Mafia was their thing. They worked, as I said, in the independents starting in 2011. Went to Ring of Honor in 2013 to 2014. They worked PWG in 2015. As far as tag team titles go, Alpha One Tag Team Champions one time. Not surprised, considering I believe Alpha One is Ethan Page's organization. They were Fringe Pro Wrestling Champions one time. Insane Wrestling League one time. International Wrestling Cartel one time. Wrestling Revolver one time. PWG once. And Impact Wrestling Tag Team Champions one time. As I said, the longest reigning champions in recent history. And they even were awarded the 2019 Tag Team of the Year by Impact Wrestling. Now, coming down to my vote on this one, people might actually be surprised by this, but I'm going with the North. Not out of patriotism, but over the fact that they've been together a lot longer. They traveled around different organizations longer. And when you look at what Jannetty and Michaels did, they weren't able to get the big one either. And so all their titles are also in somewhat minor leagues, given the stature of AWA at the time when they were titled champions and contenders. It wasn't on fire like it had been. They were barely a number 3 company at the time. So because of all that, as much as I am a fan of the Rockers, I'm going with the North. Steven.
See, and I see Impact TNA less than the Miners. So my vote's going to be for the Rockers. The North, if this was from 5-10 years from now, probably the North will have a better resume. But the North really has only won one title in a recognized company to most wrestling fans, which would be Impact. And even then, there's been no challengers until recently. At least in the AWA, even though it was a dying company, they still had some tag teams that the Midnight Rockers could wrestle. And then when the Midnight Rockers turned into the Rockers and ended up in WWE, they had a lot of good matches. I mean, if that rope doesn't break, they're WWE Tag Team Champions. So I'm going Midnight Rockers. Chris, you get to break this.
Break the tie.
Well, I mean, the Midnight Rockers, as far as I'm concerned, they've done more. I don't care how long the other team's been around. Even with a Marty Jannetty, the Rockers, they did win those belts. But because of a time continuum problem, the WWF decided, oh, no, it didn't happen. Well, we see on tape that it happened. So, you know what? The Midnight Rockers, they deserve it, and they're going for it.
There we go. So that brings us to our second matchup of the day. Public Enemy against The Bar.
So we're going to start with The Bar, which is made up of Cesaro and Sheamus. They started randomly. Well, they were part of, and I want to say they were both part of the international team in the WWE, whatever the hell they were called, with Alberto Del Rio, Wade Barrett. I don't know. Every foreign person seemed to be together at that. They debuted in September 26th of 2016. They disbanded in April 22nd of 2019, basically because there was injuries. They were on Raw from 2016 to 2018, mainly feuding with the New Day, Gallows and Anderson, Enzo and Cass. I'm trying to think. The Hardy Boys towards when the Hardy Boys came back. Then they were moved over to SmackDown as part of the shakeup. They faced Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt. The New Day again, because the WWE only has like 3 tag teams. Then basically there was, I'm trying to think if it was Cesaro or Sheamus had the injury. One of them had an injury and basically they disbanded. Sheamus, yeah. So Sheamus left and Cesaro went on to a little singles run and now he's with Shinsuke Nakamura. They're a 4-time Raw Tag Team Champion, 1-time SmackDown Tag Team Champion, and they were 2018 WWE Tag Team of the Year. You got Public Enemy, started teaming in 1993, disbanded in 2002. That's because people died, which is awkward. They've wrestled in ECW, WCW, NWA, WWF. They won titles everywhere they went except the WWF, which is unfortunate because I think they could have had an interesting run if WWE would have trusted them. Rocco Rock died in 2002, and Johnny Grunge unfortunately died in 2006. I think most people recognize them from other from WCW and WWE, but their biggest run really was in ECW with the Gangstas, which was, if you watch it, it was bloody and gruesome. Cactus Jack and Terry Funk at Hardcore Heaven in 1994, which was another bloody mess. The Dudleys. Then they went to WCW from 96 to 98. They really didn't do much. I know they won their WCW title against Harlem Heat in 96. I want to say their title reign lasted like a week. Here it says 8 days, but I don't even think it was that long. Then they returned to ECW and WWF and WCW all in 99. 99 to 2000, they were all over the place, all mainly independents. Titles they've won: 4-time ECW Tag Team Champion. They're both in the Hardcore Hall of Fame. iGeneration Superstars of Wrestling Tag Team Champions twice. Main Event Championship Wrestling Tag Team Champion once. NWA Tag Team Champions once. NWA United States Tag Team Champions out of New Jersey once. New Wave Championship Wrestling Tag Team once. Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling Tag Team Champions once, which I believe was Dusty Rhodes' little promotion here. Universal Wrestling Alliance Tag Team Champions once. WCW Tag Team Champions. They've also won IPW Tag Team Champion and MCW Tag Team Champions. I'm going Public Enemy. Unfortunately, the bar just was not together. They weren't together long, and there was only, like I said, there wasn't a lot of tag team competition. Don't get me wrong. The bar was amazing and still could be amazing, but they just weren't together long. They were together 3 years. Public Enemy was together a long time, wrestled in every promotion going. Unfortunately, they didn't win the big one in WWE, but they did win in WCW, ECW. So I'm going Public Enemy. Jonesy?
Yeah, Public Enemy to me is they're just below Nasty Boys as far as popularity and all that. They were just a little lower than them. Very similar type of tag team. They relied more on hardcore intimidation and stuff like that. If they would have added an armpit stop to the whole thing, they probably would have got the WWE Championship. But to me, it's Public Enemy. The bar's just two guys slapped together, though they were good. Public Enemy, for me, is the better tag team.
Well, it looks like we have our first sweep of this tournament because, I might not have been the biggest fan of Public Enemy. They were, as you just said, Jonesy, they were basically a newer version of Nasty Boys, but they got to travel a lot of different places. They won a lot of tag team titles. Had they not really pissed off Farouk and Bradshaw, which was basically their end to their time in WWE, and they really potatoed and stiffed them a lot during that match because they weren't listening. And I guess they might have, if you listen to Bruce Pritchard, I guess Public Enemy came off and rubbed people the wrong way, and that's why they didn't last long. But yeah, if it hadn't been for that, who knows? The story putting Sheamus and Cesaro together was started after Mick Foley forced them and did a best of 7 series, I believe. But their tag team division rivals were rather weak when you're just hot potatoing back and forth between either the Usos or the New Day. So I think they were just basically a victim of a lack of competition. They could have probably been a better tag team and more recognizable in that regards, but Public Enemy is taking it for me. Which brings us to match number 3, and that is Harlem Heat against the Natural Disasters. Jonesy.
Well, Booker T and Stevie Ray, they started as the Huffman brothers in Western wrestling scene. Then they joined the Global out of Dallas as the Ebony Express with the guidance of Gary Hart. They rose through the ranks, collecting 3 tag titles, including their feud with the Bad Breed, Axel and Ian Rotten, before signing with WCW. They started in WCW in August of '93 as Kane and Cole as Harlem Heat, and in their first year, they were in a War Games match teaming with Vader and Sid Vicious. That is huge for them. They just got into WCW, and they're thrown into like a huge main event. '94 saw them with Sister Sherry as their manager, and their names then went back to Booker T and Stevie Ray, having won their first of 7 WCW title reigns in less than 2 years. Once they lost the tag titles for the 7th time, by October '96, they dumped Colonel Robert Parker and turned babyface. In July of '97, they dumped Sister Sherry for Jacqueline, who didn't last long and jumped to the WWF. Booker would win the WCW title while Stevie Ray was rehabbing his ankle. Stevie Ray would return with his brother after a stint with the NWO, and Harlem Heat would win 3 more tag titles, making it an even 10 in WCW. Harlem Heat would break up, and only a crappy new version called Harlem Heat 2000 would last for a short time. However, on February 21st of 2005, Booker T and Stevie Ray would reunite in Reality of Wrestling's The Final Heat event, defeating the new Heavenly Bodies for the ROA tag belts. They are in the Cauliflower Alley Club, the GWF tag titles, Tag Team of the Year, PWI in '95 and '96, ranked 62 of 100 in 2003, Reality of Wrestling tag champs, the WCW tag champs 10 times, and both of them won the World Television Championship, and they are in the WWE Hall of Fame of 2019. Now we'll move on to the natural disasters. Earthquake and Typhoon. John Tenta and Typhoon will put together with Jimmy Hart as their manager. It was first revealed that Jimmy Hart signed Andre to form a tag team with Earthquake, but it was a bupkis, as a couple of weeks later, Tugboat turned on the Bushwhackers in a match, enjoying Earthquake dropping his Cellar outfit for the Typhoon gimmick. They would have a major feud with LOD, then turning face as they feuded with Jimmy Hart's Money Inc., who Hart gave the Natural Disasters a title shot match to Money Inc. instead. Eventually, the Natural Disasters won the tag belts finally for their only time from Money Inc. in July of '92. They split and both left the company, but did come back for WrestleMania 17 for the gimmick Battle Royal, but not as the Natural Disasters, but as Earthquake and Tugboat. And Earthquake is the one who eliminated Tuggers from that. The only thing they got together was the SWS Tag Team Championship once, and the WWF Tag Team Champion once. Earthquake and Typhoon, I think they were a great tag team. I think they could have done so much more with them. Could have had a long longevity. I think the problem with having 2 big guys like that is, I mean, it's hard for the tag teams, a lot of them at the time, to even believe that they could beat 2 huge guys like that, especially when Earthquake was a huge challenge to Hogan. Really, I think they should have lasted a lot longer. Maybe it was because of Typhoon's klutziness, who knows? But I mean, Harlem Heat, for me, gets that all the way. They've been together for a long time. They're real brothers. They, I mean, their music alone was fantastic. So it's Harlem Heat.
Yeah, so for me, I am also going to agree with you, Chris, on the fact that Harlem Heat, I think against any other tag team here, is going to be hard to beat. But the Natural Disasters, I like their combination together. At one point, I guess Tugboat was supposed to become a Sheik or something like that and go against Hogan at WrestleMania 7, but that got scrapped because Slaughter got there, and it was a better fit to have him be the turncoat and build up towards that. But it was another one of he was supposed to be another one of Hogan's friends turning on him, which they didn't end up doing. They just totally dropped any friendship they had. Putting him with Earthquake was a little bit odd because Earthquake had put him out of SummerSlam 90, being in Hogan's corner. But hey, who knows? A lot of things, water on their bridge, and let's be friends and be a tag team. Basically in the vein of the Twin Towers as well. Like, if they had been around at the same time against each other, that would have been a colossal match that would have had to reinforce the ring, as Gorilla Monsoon would say. But yeah, Harlem Heat, hard to beat, regardless of who they're against, especially in the first round. So they're advancing. Steven?
I mean, I think if the Natural Disasters, they would have drawn out the heel process a lot longer. I think, like Jonesy said, I would have loved to see them be a tag team a lot longer. I think they had legs, but they're facing Harlem Heat. The only correction I have to make is Harlem Heat's last tag team title win in the Reality of Wrestling was 2015, not 2005, which is insane.
Yeah, that would be my typo.
I mean, it was Booker T's promotion, so you had to have known they were going to go out the champions, but it's still insane. And it's Harlem Heat for a 3-0. I think if Natural Disasters potentially faced someone else, they might have had a chance, but they drew Harlem Heat. That's like this next one. This will be an interesting.
Yeah.
You get to start that, Chris. Or Shawn. I don't know.
Yeah, it's me. Lucky for me, because this morning as I was going through all the ones that I'm definitely covering, I have all this for notes, and I print really tiny for Demolition, and all this for notes on Edge and Christian. And this, it's going to be a really hard one because there's legends involved. So let's start off with Demolition. They formed in January of 87 and disbanded officially May of 2017. There's a lot of downtime in between that, obviously. But it started off with Axe and Randy Colley as the original Smash. But that only lasted about a month because people recognized him as one of the Moondogs. They were managed by also Johnny V. Smash ended up taking over a month later, Barry Darso as Smash took over. And by March, they got rid of Johnny V, who ended up going with the Dream Team, and they brought in Mr. Fuji. And Fuji was with them from March of 87 to November 88 when he turned his back on Demolition, doing the first ever double switch that we saw on pay-per-view, with Demolition turning face and Powers of Pain turning heel. And they were part of the Survivor Series teams where they were captaining the heel and face team. So it was kind of awkward on that one, but they ended up going against each other at WrestleMania 5 in a handicap match, retained their titles. Just a lot of extra history going on with that. In 1990, they brought in Crush, Bryan Adams, after WrestleMania 6. Axe had been having some health issues, so they needed a third person. And that was the first time also WWE started using sort of the Freebird rule. They didn't identify it as a Freebird rule, but they were using it to defend the tag team titles between the three of them. They brought back Mr. Fuji in November 90 when they ended up helping the Orient Express beat up the Legion of Doom. And that's when Jack Tunney made an announcement that there could only be two members of Demolition at the time. And that's when Axe stepped away, and it was just Smash and Crush at that time. Their final match for Smash and Crush was in September 91. But in 2007, Axe and Smash reunited in Windsor for a meet and greet. And then they teamed later on in September winning the U.S. Extreme Wrestling tag team titles. They won the Legends of Pro Wrestling, or were inducted into the Legends of Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2008. In July 2016, part of the lawsuit with WWE for traumatic brain injuries, and that was dismissed in 2018. That lawsuit is unfortunately probably the reason why they are not in the WWE Hall of Fame. Their last match together was in March of 2017 when Axe finally did retire. Looking at some of their titles, they won 3-time WWE or WWF Tag Team Champions by beating Strikeforce at WrestleMania 4. They lost them to the Brainbusters, won them back from the Brainbusters, only to lose them to the Colossal Connection. So they were involved with Bobby Heenan a lot during that time. They won them back from Colossal Connection at WrestleMania 6, but lost them to the Hart Foundation in a best 203 Falls match at SummerSlam 90, 30 years ago. So that was their run for WWE. Then they got together in 2008 and were part of the Shikara Trios tournament with One Man Gang. They didn't win as a trio, but they did win the tag team gauntlet. In March of 2010, they won the POWW tag team titles in Illinois. They also are Great Lakes Championship Wrestling one-time tag team champions, Keystone State Wrestling Alliance one-time, Universal Superstars Wrestling one-time, Cauliflower Alley Club Tag Team Award in 2015, New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2020, and PWI ranked them number 59 of tag teams of the best 100 when they did their list in 2003. That's a long list for just Demolition. Switching over to Edge and Christian, 2 more Canadians involved here. Adam Copeland and Jay Resso. They best friends from Orangeville. As we know, Edge won a contest to be trained by Sweet Daddy Siki and also Ron Hutchinson. He ended up getting Christian in there as well. And so they worked AWF with Ron Hutchinson. Jonesy and I seen them. They also were here at the Western Fair when the Hart Brothers Wrestling took part there, and it was before they got picked up by WWE. They've also wrestled as High Impact, Hard Impact, Suicide Blondes, the Canadian Rockers, Revolution X, Rocket Stampers, and the Brood plus ENC. Most people recognize them as. They've been active from 1998 to 2001. Then again, 2009 to 2011. And between 2014 and 2018, they did a lot of reunion stuff involving also having their talk shows, the Peep Show, and I forget what Edge's talk show was. But Christian ended up inducting Edge into the Hall of Fame in 2012. Now, looking at their history, though, Edge showed up as a singles competitor. Then Christian showed up in Hamilton with Gangrel. They became the Brood, feuded with the Hardy Boys after they left the Ministry of Darkness because they were part of that briefly. They competed for the services of Terry Reynolds in the Terry Invitational Tournament. Yes, it what spells tit. And they had a best of 5 series culminating in the first ever tag team ladder match at No Mercy. The next night, they had a standing ovation, and they had mutual respect for each other, so it was an awesome moment for that. The Hardys did win that, though. Later on, they became a comedy tag team doing the 5-second poses and everything, and different making fun of cities, so they were still playing the heels. They formed a group with Rhino and Kurt Angle, Team Wreck. Then eventually they broke up after Edge won the King of the Ring tournament. Edge's career soared, Christian's not so much. So unfortunately, he was somewhat the Marty Jannetty of the tag team, floating around from different groups and tag teams and all over. Nothing significant really for him. even though he was the heel, Edge remained face. Christian had to leave WWE to find some success with TNA, becoming the NWA champion and stuff like that. When he finally returned, they teamed up occasionally. So when Christian left in 2005 for TNA, Edge he was forced into retirement in 2011 due to neck issues, and Christian retired somewhat unofficially in December of 2013 when Jerry Lawler mentioned about it, but it was confirmed by Christian himself in 2017, a lot of concussion issues going on with him. We might have seen him just recently in the match with Randy Orton and getting his head booted, but they did some camera angles to make sure that he was actually not doing it. Edge did, though, return at the Royal Rumble, and so his career is being continued. As far as tag team titles and stuff like that, they are 7-time WWF Tag Team Champions. They're part of a number of tables, ladders, and chairs matches at WrestleManias and SummerSlams with the Dudleys and the Hardys, revolutionizing tag team wrestling at that time. And they were tag team wrestling tag team of the year by the Observer in 2020. So that's a lot going on with them. Unfortunately, theirs was all contained WWE, but at the same time, mostly acts and smashes were as well. So comparing just even that, you got two really different styles of tag team ages also going on at that time, because both of them had some really good teams to go against. I am going to shockingly, well, maybe not so much, go with Edge and Christian. It's not a shock, but because Demolition is considered one of the greatest of all times. That's why I figure it's a little bit of an upset, but it's Edge and Christian. So it could go either way. Steven.
I'm going Demolition. I'm a huge mark for Demolition. I think they were much more of a true tag team. Edge and Christian, I don't find them as much of a true tag team. Demolition, from their entrance, from the music to the head pieces to the face paint, they were probably one of the top, 5 or 6 tag teams around. Don't get me wrong, Edge and Christian were great, but they got into comedy and it just was not for me. So I'm going Demolition, and Jonesy, you have to break this one.
Yeah. Like I said, it can go either way. I love Demolition.
Well, with Edge and Christian, I think they were the better wrestlers. Even if you throw Crush in there. Demolition was great for their time. Their look was great. Some people question it because of the S&M connection, but personally, I think it was just, it was like biker cool and all that. But Edge and Christian achieved more in the WWE than Demolition did. They had great matches of the year, back to back, mind you, with the same teams, but they won the tag team championship more. If you're going with looks, then it's Demolition. But Edge and Christian, to me, they weren't just good in the ring. They were fantastic on the mic with their 5-second poses and stuff like that. Stuff that is not too, to me, it's not too ridiculous. It's the right amount of comedy they did because they could back it up in the ring, and they didn't let the comedy outdo what they were doing in the ring. Edge and Christian.
Yeah, and as far as it goes, also I was thinking with Demolition, it also depended on where you grew up watching wrestling. Some people thought they were a ripoff of the Legion of Doom, and others were saying the LOD were the ripoffs of Demolition. So I guess that's a good thing in their regards, that each one were considered ripoffs of each other. But yeah, it's so hard to see Demolition go by the wayside, but yeah, it could have gone either way. Which brings us on to our next matchup, which is
War Machine versus the Dark Family.
Yeah, there we are.
So I'm going to start with the Dark Family. Debuted in 2002. I can't pronounce these. Sorka and Servo. Obviously from AAA. I don't really know much about them. They're three-time AAA World Tag Team Champions. It's all I can really tell you about them because I don't know much about them. And then there's War Machine, debuted February 22nd of 2014. Hanson, depending on when you first saw them in ROH, they'd been Hanson and Rowe. War Machine. They've wrestled in New Japan Pro Wrestling, ROH, like I said, WWE, Insane Championship Wrestling, Revolution Pro, Progress, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, Pro Wrestling Noah, obviously TNA or NXT and WWE. Hanson and Rowe both participated actually in the Top Prospect Tournament in 2014. If you can find that on YouTube, definitely watch it. Or on, I think ROH has a streaming service. You could tell back then they both had something unique. August 22nd, 2015, War Machine defeated the Killer Elite Squad, which was Davey Boy Smith and Lance Archer, in a non-title match for their GCH Tag Team Champions, owned by Pro Wrestling Noah. They received their title shot in Japan September 19th. But they lost to the Killer Elite Squad, which, again, if you can find Davey Boy Smith Jr. and Lance Archer, the Killer Elite Squad on YouTube, watch them. It's actually pretty insane. December 18th, at Final Battle, War Machine defeated the Kingdom, which was Matt Taven and Michael Bennett, for the ROH Tag Team Champions. They lost them to The Addiction, which is Christopher Daniels and Kazarian. Obviously, they signed to WWE in 2018. They were under War Raiders, which I wish they would have kept that name instead of the Viking Experience. And then the Viking Raiders, Eric and Ivar. Not a big fan of the Viking gimmick, like the complete jokes that they've become, which is unfortunate. They won Brew City Wrestling Tag Team Champions. They're two-time IWGP Tag Team Champions. Hanson was ranked 108, the top 500 in 2016. Rowe was 97 in 2016. They're a one-time ROH Tag Team Champion, VIP Wrestling Tag Team Champion once, What Culture Pro Tag Team Champions once. They've obviously won the NXT Tag Team Championships once and the Raw World Tag Team Champions once. I'm going Viking Raiders, War Machine, whatever you want to call them. Just they've been all over the world. They're just who I like.
Jonesy.
I pretty much agree with that. I do like I like the Dark Family. Uno at first.
No, you're thinking the Dark Order. This isn't the Dark Order.
These guys are from AAA.
Oh, okay. Well, Dark Family didn't sound like they did a lot, so I have to go with the other ones.
Yeah, I had ended up picking Dark Family because I wanted to try and make sure we had something international going all over the place, and have a team that was actually successful in another organization. That's why they came up, because there's not a lot of successful tag teams multi-times and stuff like that in AAA that are of recognition. Plus, these guys are younger and still around, so I want something to cover all aspects of wrestling from the different decades and different territories. Unfortunately, they might have gotten better against somebody else, but Viking Raiders, War Machine, you name them, they have got a lot more going for them than Dark Family. So this is a 3-0 advancement with that one. And that moves us on to the Funks taking on the Dream Team.
Okay,
Jonesy.
starting with the Funks. From the Funk family, brother Terry and Dory Funk started wrestling in their father's wrestling promotion, Western State Sports, as a team in singles matches. They wrestled in NWA Florida and in Japan, and would join the WWF in '85. Left there in '86. By this time, they both had held the NWA Championship belt and tag belts in NWA and Southern West, and tag match of the year, '80 in Japan. Funk team with Dory calling themselves Hoss Funk and Jimmy Jack Funk, storyline brother. They were managed by Jimmy Hart. Soon they would be split and would be full-time single wrestlers. They got a whack load of stuff they did. All Japan Pro Wrestling, all these different tournaments and awards that they got. The World's Strongest Tag Determination League, 77, 79, 82. I mean, the list goes on. It's huge. I'm not even going to bother going with them. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other in the Tag Determination League. Technique Awards, Distinguished Service Medals, NWA Florida Tag Championships twice, NWA North, Georgia, couple, so that was with Story, yep. A tournament they won in NWA in '78, international tag team with the NWA. I mean, just crazy. PWI ranked them 9 of the top 100 tag teams back in 2003. They also had the SCW World Tag Championships, Tokyo Sports Match of the Year back in '80, with Dory versus Giant Baba and Jumbo Sutra, I believe is how you pronounce that. And then Western State Sports, some NWA tag belts there, 4 of those. They're going against the Dream Team. The Dream Team was 2 single wrestlers put together by their managers, Brutus Beefcake and Greg Valentine, managed by luscious Johnny Valiant and Jimmy Hart. And then Valiant just would be the lone manager later. They would feud with Steamboat and Santana and the US Express, which they would finally capture the tag titles in '85 by cheating and putting a lit cigar in Wyndham's eye. They would feud with the Bulldogs and eventually lose the titles at WrestleMania 2. They would feud with the Bees and the Bulldogs. Dino Bravo would join the team just to push out Beefcake at WrestleMania 3. They did reunite 16 years later in 2003 and sporadically teamed up and even won the BCW tag belts and the AWF belts in 2013. They also AWF tag champ, or mention that. Ranked 94, the 100 best back in 2003, and they held the WWF tag belt once. I mean, it's the Funks. Dream Team was, I think it was a great name, 2 different styles, but the Funks just they did so much as a tag team, and then they went and both had big careers after that. So, I mean, the Funks were just a small part of both of their wrestling careers. the Funks. They were a huge tag team back in the day.
Yeah, so no matter how great two individuals are, when they're brought together, sometimes they just are that two individuals who are brought together. Beefcake and Valentine really didn't impress me too much. I didn't see too much of them because I just started watching wrestling in September of '86, so they were on their downswing leading into WrestleMania 7 when Bravo kicked out Beefcake, and Beefcake obviously became the barber and a fan favorite. Never a fan of Greg Valentine's, even with Honky Tonk Man trying to do the whole Elvis shtick. Yeah, not for me. The Funks, didn't really see them, obviously, because of the timing. I do know Terry Funk mostly from seeing them doing stuff with Ric Flair, teaming with Cactus, fighting Cactus. Did see their match at WrestleMania 2 when I saw that video. And they've been obviously a tag team since birth. So you can't go wrong with a tag team that has that longevity in its built-in self. So obviously I'm going with the Funks as well.
The Funks. This was an easy decision. The Dream Team just never made it. So next one's going to be a fun one. Minnesota Wrecking Crew versus the Colossal Connection.
Yeah. Okay, we switch over to there. Minnesota Wrecking Crew. We're going only with Gene and Ole because Arn was used earlier in the tournament with the Brainbusters and Four Horsemen with Tully Blanchard. So they were together from 1969 to 1981 when Gene ended up retiring. They worked a lot of mostly the NWA. They held the Georgia Championship Wrestling titles 11 times for the NWA Columbus titles. The NWA Georgia titles they held 7 times. NWA Macon 1 time. NWA World, the Georgia version, 1 time. Then they also worked in Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, where they held the Mid-Atlantic titles twice, the Atlantic Coast titles 3 times, and the NWA World 7 times, and that was the Mid-Atlantic version. They were the PWA Tag Team of the Year in 1975 and 1977. Just in case anybody was counting or not counting, they had 32 titles in total before Gene retired, and then eventually Ole got Arn, Marty Lundy, and named him Arn Anderson, had him be a cousin of them, and so the Anderson name continued on. But they are going against the Colossal Connection, Andre the Giant and Haku, managed by Bobby the Brain Heenan. They debuted together in '89 and disbanded in 1990. So it was late '89 that they got put together. I believe it was December of '89. They ended up beating Demolition for the tag team championships. They would basically just feud with Demolition. They did fight the Rockers and Heart Foundation a couple times here and there on house shows, but it all led to a rematch at WrestleMania 6 in Toronto at Skydome. And we know that Andre wasn't feeling the best at that time, so it was pretty much a handicap match with Haku against Demolition. Andre got in there a slight bit. Did his famous "I got tied up in the ropes" shtick that he enjoyed doing, but Haku took the loss by getting hit with the Demolition decapitation. Demolition got their 3rd and final tag team titles off them, but after the match happened, Bobby was blaming Andre for it and started poking and slapping Andre, and Haku tried for the super kick. Andre hit them, got rid of them, and they left on their cart as Andre well, actually, Andre left on the card, should I say, as he held his hand up proud to the fans who were cheering him as he was leaving. That was one of the last times, or that was his last match in WWE. I think they might have done one more match against Demolition in Hawaii before he went to Japan, but it was non-televised. So WrestleMania was his last televised match. We did see him come back and get beat up by Earthquake, as was mentioned earlier. He was on crutches in the corner of the Bushwhackers against Natural Disasters at a SummerSlam. Felt sorry for him on that one. But as a tag team, Haku and Andre only had the one tag team titles compared to 32. I don't care who Andre is teaming with. Minnesota Wrecking Crew obviously are the better tag team. Steven.
Oh, I'm going Minnesota Wrecking Crew. They were a tag team. Colossal Connection was literally thrown together just to try to keep Andre on TV.
Yep, without Andre being in his prime, it was, I mean, it's Haku and a big hand slap coming at you. That's about it. So I'd say that's a sweep.
Yeah. And it brings us to our final match of the first round. World's Greatest Tag Team taking on the Young Bucks.
So we'll start with the Young Bucks, Balding Buck and Road Warrior Buck. Started teaming, or they debuted in August 8th of 2004. They're actual brothers. They like to do aerobatics. They've wrestled in ROH, New Japan, AAA, PWG, TNA. They're obviously in AEW. They've won a lot of tag team championships, but mainly IWGP Tag Team Champions once, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla Tag Team Champions 4 times, ROH Tag Team Champions 3 times. I don't count the Observer or so-called uncensored stuff because that's all their buddies who write it. AAA World Tag Team Champions once. House of Glory Tag Team Champions once. Demand Lucha Royal Canadian Tag Team Champions once. Then you got the World's Greatest Tag Team, Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin. Debuted together October 22nd of 2002. Off and on active right up until 2015. They wrestled in ROH, WWE. I'm trying to think. I'm sure they've wrestled probably other places. They are, well, OVW. They were the PWI Tag Team of the Year in 2003. ROH Tag Team Champions twice. WWE Tag Team Champions twice, which is a shame. I'm going the World's Greatest Tag Team because I can't stand the acrobats of the Young Bucks.
Jonesy.
For me, the Young Bucks, like the World's Greatest Tag Team, don't have a chance against the Young Bucks. What the Young Bucks have done, like them or not, their style, when they're in a good, let's say, New Japan, they are fantastic. They have done more in their short time than, and they're not even done yet, than pretty much anyone has done. They've traveled everywhere. For me, it's easy. I vote Bucks.
Yeah, having to put bias aside, looking at these two tag teams, I do have to advance the Young Bucks. They are a good tag team. They're somewhat the
Don't say it. Do not say what I think you're going to say, because I will have to come to London and punch you in the throat.
I was going to say the remake of the Hardy Boys.
Oh, okay. The Hardy Boys I can live with because I don't care. I thought you were going to say the Rock and Roll Express, and I was going to get in a car, drive to London, and punch you in the throat.
No, they're trying to be the new versions of those guys, just like the Rockers were pretty much the rip-offs of the Rock and Roll Express in that regards. But, there's only one of those. Just looking at them, I think they could be a lot better than what they are. They come off really bad and arrogant, mind you, and trying to be the cool kids and what everybody likes, but not everybody likes the flippy stuff. However, I do have to advance the Young Bucks over World's Greatest Tag Team just because of our premise is what they've done as a team compared to other places. That doesn't mean they're going to make it out of the second round because they're going against the Andersons next.
Okay, so I will recap the first round. We had the Midnight Rockers beat the North 2-1. Public Enemy beat the Bar 3-0. Harlem Heat beat the Natural Disasters 3-0. This might be the upset of this bracket. Edge and Christian beat Demolition 2-1. War Machine beat the Dark Family 3-0. The Funks beat the Dream Team 3-0. Minnesota Wrecking Crew, which is Ole and Gene Anderson, beat the Colossal Connection 3-0. And Road Warrior Buck and Balding Buck beat the World's Greatest Tag Team 2-1. Any surprises, Shawn, for the first round for you?
Definitely the Demolition loss. Obviously could have gone either way, but when you throw in the fact that they somewhat were done after their 3 tag team titles and you threw in Crush compared to what Edge and Christian did, it's understandable in that way. I love Demolition like no tomorrow, but when you see some of these things, it's hard to not advance Edge and Christian.
Chris, was there anything that surprised you?
No, actually, every single one I picked went through the first round.
2 of mine
That's
didn't.
the first. I've done terrible in my predictions up till now.
Demolition and World's Greatest Tag Team were the 2 that I got wrong. So second round, we're going to have the Midnight Rockers or the Rockers versus Public Enemy. Harlem Heat versus Edge and Christian. War Machine versus the Funks. Minnesota Wrecking Crew versus Balding Buck and Road Warrior Buck, the Young Bucks. Is there anything you're looking forward to this next round?
Harlem Heat and Edge and Christian could be the interesting one, really, of the whole matchup in the next round. Jonesy?
Okay.
I'm curious to see how far the Bucks go. I really am. They are a fantastic team. Take away their comedic style. I like the flippy stuff if it's done correctly, and I think that style of wrestling is done properly in New Japan, but not so much here.
Okay, so we're going to go on to the second round, and Jonesy gets to start Rockers Public Enemy.
All right. For me, I mean, the Rockers are a great tag team, but they didn't do a whole lot as far as winning titles. They did get the WWF once, asterisk beside it. But the Public Enemy, they went a lot more places. And Public Enemy, to me, was entertaining every time they were out there. Yeah, their matches weren't always exciting, but if they were in a hardcore match, it was fantastic. For me, Public Enemy is just, they're not a better wrestling tag team than the Rockers, but they are better as far as, I think they're perceived as bad guys who also worked as good guys. Where the Rockers, they were just, for the most part, WWF, they were just always good. And to me, they were a weak-looking team because they were small, and pretty much everyone they faced was bigger than them. The only times they were really good is when they went against teams that were similar to their size, like Orient Express and the Rockers. I can just put that on replay all day, watching those guys go. But for me, it's Public Enemy. I just think they're the better tag team. They've achieved more as far as a tag team.
Well, it looks like Steven is going to be the tiebreaker here because I'm thinking and looking at these two teams, and I'm like, oh, it's like the Rock and Roll Express against Nasty Boys. It's just Bizarro Land versions of them, really. I prefer tag team wrestling that tells stories. I prefer tag team wrestling that looks smooth, and Public Enemy, it was a lot of garbage wrestling. They weren't all the garbage and as Dusty Rhodes would say, the plunder would end up covering up for their misgivings and lack of ability. The Rockers were deemed the tag team specialists at the moment they stepped into WWE by Gorilla Monsoon. If you look back at some of their matches with Doug Summers and Buddy Rose in AWA, some of the greatest matches. Jonesy, you brought up the fact that they were the best when they were going against teams their own size. And that makes me think of, as you pointed out, the Rockers against the Orient Express. Not necessarily the Orient Express, Sato and Tanaka at WrestleMania version that we saw, but I would prefer Kato and Tanaka, which was the Diamond Exchange, no, Bad Company from AWA, when they were against each other at Royal Rumble. That match was incredible. I don't see anything standing out as far as a match for Public Enemy that I would want to go on YouTube or go to the WWE Network to specifically see. But that match with Kato and Tanaka against the Rockers, I can watch that.
When the Nasty Boys took a half of a table and chucked it at one of their heads and got him right square in the back of the head and went right down. And that was WCW Saturday Night, I believe. But that's about only one I can think of. But hey, there's one.
So, yeah, and once again, that involved plunder. But and they were going against a carbon copy of each other. So it's a tie right now. Rockers, for me, are advancing. Public Enemy, are they going? Who's doing it, Steven?
Oh, it's the Rockers. I can't stand Public Enemy. If you take ECW out of it, because really it was just, let's see who can not die, wins the match, I'm going Rockers. I just can't stand the plunder every match. And they only held, really, you take their WCW 8 days out, all they ever had was ECW, which wouldn't hold up.
No, they had other stuff. Yeah. I see NWA stuff here too, and I see iGeneration. That's huge.
Mm-hmm. So now we're moving on to Harlem Heat versus Edge and Christian. Good luck, Shawn. You get to start it.
This one is the hard one, as I said when we were looking at going into this round. I love both tag teams. It's so tough. I guess saving grace on deciding which side gets which is, I think Harlem Heat traveled more, and they also, with being 10-time tag team champions in WCW versus 7-time tag team champions in WWE or WWF, Edge and Christian were around with the Hardys and the Hollies, APA, and the Dudleys. You look over at Harlem Heat, and they had the Steiners, they had the Faces of Fears, they had Public Enemy, they had Nasty Boys. They had so many tag teams, Legion of Doom, even. Just the comparison between the two divisions, I have to give it to Harlem Heat. They survived having Robert Parker as their manager, had Sherry, and then were with Jackie. They didn't break up either, except for, they kind of did when Stevie went to the NWO, but they didn't really feud. They had, Big T come in to be the new Harlem Heat. And anytime you put a new in front of something, or
it was Harlem Heat
2000, it's just horrible. So Harlem Heat, 10-time tag team champions. I'm putting them ahead.
Well, Jonesy, your vote's not going to count because I'm going Harlem Heat. Too many gold championships. Edge and Christian, great tag team, but they just didn't have the competition. Harlem Heat, like Shawn said, missed a few, like the Outsiders. I think Vicious and Delicious at the time. Like they had so many. WCW had so much tag team depth. So I'm going Harlem Heat. But Jonesy, who would you were going to pick?
Oh, it would have been Heat.
Ooh, it's 3-0.
Sorry?
So 3-0. You were going to Heat?
They have one of the best entrance songs, in my opinion, as far as soon as it begins, you know who it is. It sets the mood, the fire, their outfits, their look, their smash mouthness. They're just, and with Sister Sherry, they were just great. They were just fantastic.
And that brings the best lines ever on live TV.
Yeah, you might want to ignore that part, Hulk Hogan.
We're not going to repeat it, but if anyone wants to find it, you're just like,
it's Sherry's reaction. That's awesome.
No one can believe he just said that. So now it's going to be War Machine versus the Funks, and I get to start this one.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to be the only vote for this team, but I'm going War Machine. I think Hanson and Rowe, two big guys, have wrestled so many great tag teams all over the world. The Young Bucks, the world's greatest tag team, the Briscoes, the Addiction, the Kingdom, Undisputed Era, Heavy Machinery, the Usos. They've just had too many. They have so much talent, and they've traveled all around the world and won titles in New Japan, in WWE, in ROH. They've just got too much, and I'm going War Machine.
Jones.
For me, it's the Funks. The type of wrestling nowadays, you don't get cauliflower ears as easy as you did back then. And for me, cauliflower ears trumps beautiful looking ears. It's the Funks for me.
That's definitely some interesting way of putting things. Multi-time tag teams for each of these guys. A lot of gold on the line being compared. War Machine traveled a lot of different places, have had a lot of more modern, obviously the modern tag team style of wrestling. They're respected all over the world. And you got the Funks, who basically were mostly in the NWA. It was definitely a different style, maybe a little bit more hard potatoing and stuff like that, where, as Chris said, you have the cauliflower ears, and they had to do more kayfabe and make the business look as legitimate as possible. However, if I'm going to watch either of these teams, I'm going to go with the War Raiders, War Machine, Viking experience, whoever they want to be, advancing to the next round. So that might be your surprise, Steven, but
so then we have, I think, and it's Jonesy gets the Minnesota Wrecking Crew versus the Young Borings.
Well, I look at the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, and they're similar as far as what they've won in that. But to me, the Young Bucks are just a better team. I'd rather watch a Young Bucks match than most tag team matches in Japan, not AEW. But to me, the Bucks, you look at the resume, they've been everywhere. No matter where they go, they get the belts. And the only thing that they haven't done is gone to the WWF, but I don't think they need to unless they want to make a different type of legacy for them. To me, the Bucks are they're a great team. They're not big guys, but they can do stuff in the ring that a lot of other tag teams just have never dared even do. And I think the Bucks can have a great match with anybody. For me, it's the Bucks.
Yeah, Young Bucks, a lot of traveling. That was my criteria for War Machine to pick it up. But you're also talking about 32 tag team championships. Like, how can you deny 32 titles at the same time? I didn't total up all the Young Bucks stuff, I honestly will say, but I gotta go with the Andersons picking this up because 32 titles. They were team before with Gene had that, and then the legacy continued when Ole brought in Arn. The name.
But we're not talking about the Arn years, though.
No, but the name Anderson stands out, and that was due to those years from 1969 to 1981 that it was established by Gene and Ole. And 32 tag team titles, I got to go with the Andersons. Minnesota Wrecking Crew.
Now, do I eliminate the Young Bucks just because I want to throat punch them or do I go with the best tag team?
I think we have to be honest, not go with our Jim Cornette influence. But if that's how you actually feel, then that's a different story.
Young Bucks are moving on.
We are trying to be comparing resumes over images.
Don't get me wrong. I've watched the Young Bucks in Japan, and I love them. They're just pissing me off here. So I'm moving the Young Bucks on just because they would be the better tag team. If I had to find something on TV, I would watch the Young Bucks over the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, so Gene and Ole. So round 2 had the Midnight Rockers beat Public Enemy 2-1. Harlem Heat beat Edge and Christian 3-0, which I was surprised it was 3-0. War Machine probably had the biggest upset, beat the Funks 2-1. And the Young Bucks beat Minnesota Wrecking Crew 2-1. Shawn, surprises, thoughts?
Surprised that you did advance the Young Bucks. But the 4 teams that are going into the finals are quite the amazing teams when you look at them. And we have like different eras because definitely the Young Bucks and War Machine are current, but Harlem Heat dominated the 90s. The Rockers were dominant in the 80s, late 80s. So yeah, it can go anywhere. It looks like at this moment.
Jonesy, any thoughts?
I'm glad that you've seen the light in the Bucks. I mean, Lars and Gene were great, but everything they did was NWA.
It just came down to them not traveling.
Yeah. Because I mean, I have here that Minnesota, they had the tag team of the year twice. So did the Young Bucks. I mean, there's a lot of similarities as far as the resume, except where else have you been?
So in the semis, we're going to have the Midnight Rockers versus Harlem Heat, War Machine versus Balding Buck and Road Wire Buck. Any thoughts on the semis?
Why do you call him Road Warrior Buck?
Because if you follow Jim Cornette's podcast, he calls him Road Warrior Buck and Balding Buck because he always acts like he's a road warrior, doesn't sell anything, pops right back up. This is a new thing for them in AEW because it wasn't never like this in New Japan. This is they decided that because they're booking, they can become the road warriors, basically. Any thoughts on the semifinals, guys?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I don't know how it's going to shake out looking at these 4 teams. I have an idea, but we'll have to see if it plays out.
Jonesy, any thoughts on the semis?
My picks are easy. I'm ready to go.
I'm ready too. I've been ready since. So we're going to start with Shawn.
Yeah, I think this one's 2 really great tag teams. I love both the Midnight Rockers or the Rockers and Harlem Heat, but as I explained earlier in the show when we first started the whole thing, the Rockers only lasted from 85 to 92 when Marty tried to jump through the barbershop window. Not very successful being put together since. Even with the asterisks, it's not enough to compare to 10 tag team championship titles, not to mention everything else they won before going to WCW. Harlem Heat is moving on in my thoughts. Steven.
Oh, this one was actually really easy. It's Harlem Heat. They 2 mini championships. This was easy. Jonesy.
Oh, Harlem Heat.
Yeah, it's a fairly easy one. The next one, we have War Machine versus the Young Bucks. This is easy. I've seen them actually match up in ROH and New Japan. I'm going War Machine, and not even just out of the sheer hate of the Young Bucks right now. Hanson and Rowe, 2 big guys who can move like small guys. Strong, athletic, traveled the world. They've done it on the big stage, whether that's New Japan, WWE, ROH, where the Young Bucks are missing that big stage championship. They've got IWGP and ROH, but they're missing that next step. They don't have the next step yet. So I'm going War Machine. Jones.
If I'm going resume, it's the Bucks. And that's about all I can say on that. Because I haven't seen the other team very much. So I leave it as up to you, Shawn. Who do you want to advance? Even though I personally, I think it's ridiculous that the War Machines are in the 3rd round of this tournament. Well, but it will change who I vote for if the War Machines get through.
Oh, because you expected obviously the Funks to make it to the semifinals.
No, I expected the Bucks to win the whole thing. When I went through and added up, I have a system, so the Young Bucks were the only one that rated higher than anyone else. The only other one that came close to them was Harlem Heat.
Yeah, I'm looking at both their resumes, hearing both your arguments on either side, Stephen and Chris, and I think also my own feelings at this moment in time. Would I want to see a Viking Raiders match, or would I want to see a Young Bucks match? And the Young Bucks currently do not have that great of competition. They are very green who they've surrounded themselves with the exception of FTR and maybe SoCal Uncensored. But everything else is very green and not ready for prime time. Then you go to WWE and seeing the Viking Raiders against the Usos, against the New Day, the Street Profits. I'd rather see those.
Let's not. Honestly, for me, it came down to the Viking Raiders have done it, have won championships on a major promotion, where the Young Bucks haven't. No WWE championships, no AEW championships. They haven't taken it to the next level yet, which they should have.
Yeah. And regardless, at the same time, even if they put those straps on themselves in AEW, they would get then the Triple H moniker of pushing yourself. And so they're in a lose-lose situation, really. That's the problem when you have active talent booking things. That's what we saw when Kevin Nash was booking in WCW and stuff like that. But yeah, currently, if I were to want to watch a match of theirs today, I would be the Viking Raiders War Machine today over wanting to see a Young Bucks match. So War Machine is advancing.
So in the semifinals, we had Harlem Heat beat the Midnight Rockers 3-0, and War Machine beat the Young Bucks 2-1. But if you really are big, Jonesy would like it. Go watch Young Bucks, Viking Raiders, or War Machine in New Japan or in ROH, and you'd be impressed. I think you would like War Machine in the ROH days. So in the finals, we have Harlem Heat versus War Machine. Anything I'm not really surprised about this. I know I'm kind of surprised War Machine's made it through, but they kind of got an easy draw in the first round. And then so I'm not surprised about Harlem Heat making it through. I can't see anyone being surprised about Harlem Heat making it through.
I expected Harlem Heat to make it through to at least this stage. Did not know who was going to come out of the bottom section.
Jonesy?
So could anybody have beaten the Colossal Connection? Maybe the North?
I think any Colossal Connection probably beats the Dream Team, Dark Family, and that's about it in the first round.
Maybe the Natural Disasters.
Maybe. That would have been like one of those, but I'm not really surprised about where we are, but okay, in the finale, we're going to have Harlem Heat versus War Machine. And Jonesy, you get to start it.
Harlem Heat has the legacy. For me, it's Harlem Heat. I've said everything I can about Harlem Heat. War Machine, again, I look at the resume. Yeah, they've done good for themselves. They've been in, I think, 3 major promotions. My thing just shut off here. But the only thing that holds back the Heat is they didn't travel a lot outside of their WCW realm once they got to WCW. So for me, Heat is the one I would rather see go against the other 2 teams than the War Machines. I think the Heat have a much better chance beating the other guys than the War Machines would. So that is partly why. And I picked them to go until the Young Bucks. So I got to go with the other team, not because they knocked my team out, but I just think Heat's the better team.
So here, I might as well put it up right now. My vote.
You two get a hit home run
for Harlem Heat. We are talking about the greatest team of all time at the moment. War Machine, Viking Raiders, they have a lot more to go. I'm surprised that they made it as far as they did. This is probably the furthest any current active team has made it. But when a lot of stuff we're looking at people's past because the teams are no longer together. You see the other three teams that are already in the finals now being joined by Harlem Heat. All of them have had career from beginning to finish. War Raiders still have longer. If we were to do this again in a year or 2 years and more teams have ended, then maybe they've got more success than the 4 teams that are already into the finals, or the shuffling of the deck happens differently, and we have a different foursome in the finals. But Viking Raiders making it as far as they did, it's impressive for a current active team. Harlem Heat, 10-time tag team champions, along with everything else before going to WCW. They're WWE Hall of Famers. Can't deny the Heat. Steven?
We're talking one of the greatest tag teams around, probably top 5 to 7. How do you deny the Harlem Heat? They've slot right in there with the top 4 that we're going to see, which would be Midnight Express versus Dudley's, Rock and Roll versus Harlem Heat, which will be insane.
Yeah.
These 4 teams, it's going to be an interesting
finale.
Yeah. Not really sure how these break down past. It's just, I mean, it's insane that we're going to have these 4 teams and we're going to have to try to determine who's the greatest tag team of all time.
Yeah, and we only have a few hours to go because at 10 o'clock, right after AEW, we're doing Scumbags Wrestling, completing this Final 4, talking about Payback, and everything else that's going to happen on the news. But and also previewing All Out happening on Saturday. But this is our Final 4. Jonesy, your thoughts on it before we get to it later on tonight?
Got some thinking to do in the next few hours. And few hours meaning 3 or more.
That's correct, because we are about 7:30-ish when people are going to finish watching this. So hopefully you enjoy AEW Dynamite tonight, and see you at 10 o'clock. Anything you guys want to plug before that? Jonesy, the trivia challenge?
Sure. The Wrestling Trivia Game Show Challenge is every Monday. There is a new episode. Right now, Shawn is our champion, and we'll see if he can win again. If you would like to play, please get a hold of us. We need players, really, for it to work. So if not, I'll have to dust off my puppets and get some new contestants going.
That should be interesting. So, I hope people step up to the challenge. You have a Facebook page that people can reach you at, and also they can reach us through the Scumbags Wrestling page on Facebook. I guess one last thing before we do check out is what Steven has on right now. Want to tell us about that, Steven?
Well, this is the new Scumbag of Wrestling T-shirt. You contact Shawn for one of these through Facebook, Twitter, all the social medias.
Running along the bottom.
All the proceeds go to Steven's Wrestling Journeys, donation to Sick Kids Hospital, and I'm not going to pronounce what it is because I'll butcher it, and I don't want to. But it's got 20 of the – is it 20 or 24?
22.
22 of the top Ontario independent wrestlers. So it's very comfortable when Shawn gets the sizing right. And get yours now. And there's a poster, which is $15.
Yep. Poster is $15. It's a 11 by 17 size. Same as you get basically with any independent wrestling organization's posters. So you can get frames for, I believe, at Michael's. Those are $15 each. And the T-shirts are $30. And zero profit is coming to the Scumbags of Wrestling. It's all going to Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto, supporting Steven's wrestling journey, Curie malformation research. And, definitely get it. Independent wrestling is starting to pop back up in Ontario. You don't want to go back wearing some of your old gear. Show up wearing one of these new shirts and impress everybody. And also know that you gave to a good cause. So we're going to check out of here. And we're going to see you at 10 o'clock for our review of Payback, the final four of this bracket. And we'll even give a preview of what we're coming up with next when we return with Fantasy Warfare Tournament. Till next time, see ya.